It was a planned visit for May of 2004, Fran's cousin Rhoda Turner securing air travel from New Jersey to the West Coast, in part to visit with Gary and Fran but also to acquaint another cousin, Robert Remski, whom she had never met, who was currently residing in Oakdale, a small community a short distance from the Wilsons in Modesto. Gary proclaiming the Buick to the 580 freeway, traversing the windy Altamont Pass to the Bay Area, voyaging across the San Mateo Bridge, then north on the El Camino Real, arriving at the San Francisco International Airport. The couple greeting Rhoda as she descended from the secured departure upper level, a visit to the baggage retrieving station, the creative Rhoda having no problem identifying her garment luggage as she had tied a colored scarf on its handle for quick identification. The transitioning journey to Modesto enabling Gary an opportunity to get acquainted with the lady from New Jersey. An arrival in Modesto, Gary having confirmed his newfound relative a very delightful lady, Rhoda straight to the point with conversation, disguising a subtle hidden sense of humor. The following day a knock at the door, cousin Robert, a person Gary judged to be his age, introducing himself. The introductory cousin having reached retirement age, spending his time with travel, proposing a venture to nearby Knight's Ferry. Gary declining, unable to attend because of his work commitment. Fran and Rhoda accepting the offer to journey eastward towards the Sierra foothills. Knight's Ferry, not a well-publicized attraction, was established in 1849. A historical landmark in California history on Highway 108. The original ferry fording the Stanislaus River having been replaced in 1852 by a toll bridge. After the flood of 1863, it being replaced with the longest covered bridge west of the Mississippi, the structure across the Stanislaus River 330 feet in length. Robert chauffeuring the group, the threesome having a luncheon afternoon, Rhoda able to experience the foothills of Stanislaus County. Gary making a decision to take a day off from work when Robert offered to drive the three to San Francisco in his high-mileage older Chevrolet. Gary sitting in the front seat, somewhat cautious of Robert's driving ability, giving directions as Robert was new to California, having yet to journey to San Francisco. Continuing on 580 through Oakland, approaching the Bay Bridge, the 13 lanes of interchange prorate into the 5 lanes of the westward upper deck to San Francisco. The bottom deck now dedicated for eastern travel to Oakland, the $3 toll having increased from the 25 cents of Gary's childhood days. Gary recalling his youthful past, when the top deck was for cars and the bottom deck for all vehicles with more than 2 axles and the A train, an earlier version of BART, the Bay Area's new rapid transit to San Francisco. Vividly remembering the station stop at Yerba Buena, sailors disembarking from the A train, to a quaint Treasure Island that was first constructed in 1939, the Navy seizing the man-made addition to Yerba Buena for additional Navy base during the Second World War. Gary residual with his memories, not projecting his thoughts, Rose's cousin Robert continuing with his conversation. The entrance to the city by the bay found the foursome's first stop at Pier 39, Fisherman's Wharf. Embarking on a tour of the shops, exploring the realm of North Beach, a tourist haven with a diversity composed from all ethnics of the globe. Gary having explored this dominion since his teen years, the area a familiar friend, never staggered with its display or offerings. The fragrance of the bay, the open-air seafood pavilions, the smell of crabs steaming from the boiling pots, their presentations being displayed, a continuous insurmountable number of visitors partaking of their delight. Gary's reminiscing, The entertaining pier area hadn't changed in 40 years, the cable cars, the Maritime Museum, it was the same, an anamnesis of life, the vision, sounds and the atmosphere still flowed, its presence still indwelling within him, as ghost from the past. A walk to Pier 33 found the visitors at the Alcatraz embarkation ferry, normally booked far in advance, but on this day for some unexplained reason tickets were available. Boarding the blue and gold ferry, Gary looking forward to a journey that he had attempted to make many times in the past, having viewed this prison island perceived as the rock from afar. Exposed to its history and relevance, his sense of expectancy was enthused, a lifelong ambition being fulfilled. Aboard the blue and gold, the prevailing leeward wind of San Francisco Bay embracing all who ventured on deck, the craft approaching Alcatraz. Gary wondering about the mindset of those future fortress residents making this trip, knowing what their incarcerating destination would enthrall. The craft berthing on the east side of the island, the throng of adventitious tour visitors disembarking. The park guide directing the exploratory group up the quarter-mile walk to the main cell house. Entering the capacious building, tour headsets were made available giving a narration as they journey through the tiers of prison cells, down Broadway, the name given to the central cell area. Passing the barred residence of Al Capone, Albert Stroud the Birdman of Alcatraz and the cells of Frank Morris, John, and Clarence Anglin, made famous from the Clint Eastwood movie Escape from Alcatraz, their fate still unknown. The only documented successful escape from the facility was by John Paul Scott on December 16, 1962, able to swim the 3 miles to Fort Point beneath the Golden Gate Bridge, being found by teenagers. The exhausted inmate suffering from the hypothermia from the 46-degree water temperature was returned to captivity. Gary finding the 2.5 hours of touring somewhat familiar and interesting. The 3-tiered facility, its dining room, kitchen, and outside recreational area pictured in the Eastwood movie were authentic. A major cost to the producers was $500,000 to route a cable for electricity from San Francisco. The power plant capability on the island was discontinued upon its closing. Their Alcatraz adventure fulfilled, strolling back to Pier 39, the foursome walking to the Powell Hyde Street cable car line embarkation in Aquatic Park for Chinatown. Arriving at the Chinatown's Jackson Street stop, Gary taking notice of the time, it was approaching late afternoon, a decision being made to forego a tour of Chinatown, the cable car ride would suffice. The visitors walking up the steep incline to Mason Street, boarding the Powell-Mason cable line back to Bay Street and Fisherman's Wharf. The group once again addressing their automotive endeavor, their San Francisco visit not yet concluded. Gary providing directions down Van Ness Avenue to a route that he had made many times in his youth, the electric bus route on McAllister Street. By following the bus's overhead power lines it would take them to Fulton Street, Golden Gate Park and their final destination the Pacific Ocean. The view from Fulton Street when approaching the ocean was majestic, the cascading crest of the waves their voice proclaiming its sound of eminence, the breaking onrush reclining after caressing the beach, leaving its presence known on the sand. The excursion to the ocean formatted so Fran's cousin Rhoda, from the East Coast, could embed her feet in the West Coast Pacific Ocean, which she did, the group embracing to share her desire. Gary having a déjà vu moment, these scenes like others of a youthful remembrance, across the great highway that bordered the ocean once was home to the magnificent playland at the beach, the famous park with its fun house, roller coaster, merry-go-round, and exciting rides, the Penny Arcade with its mutoscope viewing machines. Sadly, Playland's existence being replaced with high-rise condominiums for those who could accord the luxury of premium beachfront property. Gary directing Robert back to the North Beach area, the alternative roadway leading past the famous Cliff House restaurant, Seal Rock, and the Presidio, the once famous military facility from World War II, now a commercial enterprise. The three sightseers venturing back to the Embarcadero, then west on Harrison Street to the well-hidden First Street Bay Bridge on-ramp. The departure from San Francisco coming to a conclusion, once again traversing the Bay Bridge and back to the Central Valley in Modesto. Rhoda's visit was not without a proxy dissentient, Fran, Rhoda, and Gary journeying to Columbia, the home of his sister Nancy and the matriarch of the Wilson family, Gary's mother, Betty. His mother in the 8th decade of her life, still an active docent at Columbia State Park, giving Roe and the family a private tour of this historic gold mining community from the 1850 era. Columbia being featured in many of the early Western movies, the most famous being High Noon, the town having never changed, its history, a buttress of rural California life during the 1850s. Rhoda, a DAR member, getting to experience a Western view of history, Gary noting that the American Revolution didn't end in the 1700s but continued its life for another 100 years in this nation, only in a different context. Cousin Rhoda's visit ending, Gary and Fran found the travel from Modesto to the San Francisco airport Mandarin, accommodating her return to New Jersey. Her presence and actualization, exemplary of a most enjoyable person, a sadness prevailed with her departure. She would be missed.